We still got a couple minutes. It is 7 p.m. and I will call this regular council meeting to order. Thank you everyone for coming. I imagine it's going to clear out fairly soon, so we'll start off with some of those things. So thank you for bearing with it. If everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And thank you, everybody. We'll start off with roll call.
Councilmember Marcus. Present. Councilmember Robinson.
Present.
Councilmember Wenzel.
Present.
Council members Ansich and Carlisle are not here.
Yes, and both council members Ansett and Carlisle informed us they're both feeling under the weather tonight, so they I excuse both of them.
We need a motion.
If the council confirmed.
I'll make a motion that we excuse them for once. I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to excuse council members Ansich and Carlisle. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So passed. Approval of the agenda. Council's pleasure.
Make a motion to adopt the approval of agenda. I'll second that.
Moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So passed. Now on to the fun part. You blame it.
You quick.
You take your time.
I am pleased to introduce everybody to Casey. She's gonna be our new police clerk. She started already. She's been into it for a couple weeks now and she's doing an amazing job already. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to swear her in. Casey? Do you solemnly affirm that on your honor, you will never betray your position as police clerk, have integrity, character, and honor public trust, always have the courage to hold yourself and others accountable for your actions, and always uphold the Constitution and community you serve? And repeat after me. I, Casey Grove,
I, Casey Grove,
do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United
of
States
the United States
and the laws of the Constitution
and laws of the Constitution
of the state of Washington,
of the state of Washington,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and impartially perform
and impartially perform
the duties of police clerk
the duties of police clerk
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
I think. That's one of my dad made. Best of you. You felt the rest, Steve, or do I? That's for you. While this is being done, I invite you to come say hi to Casey. We're temporarily located in the corner of the fire department building there. She's there Monday through Friday. We're happy to finally have a clerk in there and available to the public. So please come say hi to her if you have business. We're actually open again. So. So if you're-
Oh, sure.
For sure, we would love to have a picture of that. One job.
You got it? Yeah. I know.
Congratulations. All right. Introduce you guys to Daryl Tevis, be a lateral hire for our department. It's kind of a big deal for a small agency to find a quality lateral hire applicant. Aside from the financial savings for the city, we're thrilled to have somebody that is compassionate about caring for and serving the community. And I think Daryl's gonna be doing that for us right out the gates. Daryl, do you solemnly affirm, or I guess, sorry, repeat after me here. I'm still new to doing this. I repeat your name.
I, Daryl Tevis,
Do you solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the laws of the Constitution of the state of Washington,
and the laws of the Constitution of the state of Washington,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
perform the duties of the office of police officer
perform the duties of the office of police officer
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
And Daryl Tevis, do you solemnly affirm that on your honor, you will never betray the badge, your integrity, your character, and public trust, that you will always have the courage to hold yourself and others accountable for our actions?
I do.
And will you uphold the Constitution and the community you serve?
I will.
For sure.
Yeah. Well done.
Hi, buddy.
Thanks.
We done?
And you're all more than welcome to hang out if you would like. We've got to get into a budget presentation. If you guys want to have the rest of your evening, that is fine as well. But sir. Yeah.
Yeah, for Gerald. See what you think.
Here.
Here, anyone, projected meetings?
You're gonna be writing a budget presentation.
Yeah.
It'd be more exciting than our presentation. Probably.
Waking up.
I was gonna say, my phone started moving over here.
Your city. That'd be nice, huh? We'll sit down here.
Yeah, scared of me.
We are going to go into a budget history presentation. And Finance Director Pope is gonna lead this.
Myself and the city administrator.
Let me kill one of the lights.
Found that funny?
That's a little better, I think.
You almost lost the courage right there.
Okay, with the recent happenings, with Cosmo closing down and this causing some hardship on the city, we have decided, with our experience of running through scenarios like this 3 times now while the mill has shut down, we thought it would be a good idea to kind of show the citizens what is affected by the mill being shut down. And that is our general fund. So as we go through this, you will see what departments that are primarily affected by this. First is police department, fire department, city hall, street department, parks department, and cemetery. And under those departments, there are some subcategories that you'll see a little bit later on in the presentation. But what we'll show you is what we have done, in the past and what we plan on doing going forward to help mitigate this. Next, please. Okay, so this speaking.
So this slide here gives you an idea of what the biggest expenditures are for our general fund. The police department makes up 43% of the general fund budget. Fires 14%, city halls 14%, cemeteries 2%, parks are 10%, legal services are 1%, council and mayor 2%, and then code enforcement, planning, community development, those kind of things, they're also 1%. So as you can see, really the majority of our general fund supports the public safety plus the city hall function. Just to give you an idea how that's broken out. This next slide basically takes all those departments and shows you what we budgeted since 2005. So take parks, for example, in 2005, we had budgeted $74,010. In 2023, we budgeted $74,065. Cemetery, again, you had 41,000 in 05 and in 23, 42,245. Streets, 163,000 in 2005, this year, 122,750. The main impact for streets is fuel taxes. We're getting less and less fuel taxes every single year. And that's not anything we have control over. That's strictly a state who decides how much we get based on our population size. And not to mention, you have more electric vehicles now. They're not paying any gas taxes. So as more and more of those come out, the less we'll receive there. And $122,000 isn't much of a budget for street. Go ahead.
As you can see, the numbers are as conservative as possible. Revenues have gone up slightly. But the competition for the funds has increased dramatically. There's only so much to go around, so we've got to put it in the most needy areas within the city. You know, and there's been a lot of questions, well, what's the city gonna do now? Because the mill is down. You know, how are we gonna get through this? Well, as you can see from 2007, six and seven is roughly when it got down. Weyerhaeuser. And the worst year of that was in 2011. Things got pretty bad. 2012, early 2012 is when they really started to open back up, meaning Cosmo. 2013, we started to see an increase in revenue, but we soon realized it was never going to be what it was with Weyerhaeuser. So we had to scale things back, you know, like especially like in parks and cemetery. And there was a lot of things we had to catch up on for those years that everything was shut down. But we realized we were not going to have the funds like we thought we were going to. We needed to fund other areas. Street was starting to slowly come up until 2015. And then you start seeing a lot of the state share gas tax revenue, as Julie mentioned, being taken into other funds throughout the state and not coming back to the local level. We also looked at around 2019, transportation benefit district for Cosmopolis. That is simply something that just wouldn't really give us the benefit for the impact it would be to the citizens. We would see roughly about $34,000 to $38,000 of benefit, which is basically about 2 city blocks of overlay or total reconstruction and overlay. So we weren't going to see a lot, you know, of a benefit from that. Aberdeen, it's a great tool. They have a lot of retail sales tax where they can do a lot of wonderful things, and they've been able to leverage that money into some great projects. Hopefully it's still even marginal for them to be able to do it because of the lack of retail versus a place like Aberdeen or a larger city. Ocean Shores, I know they've looked at it. I don't know if they ever did implement that or not, but they have a lot of retail sales tax, you know, from the tourists. So street is going to be another issue. We're gonna have to tackle at some point. That's not going to happen right now. So Park, Cemetery, Street, those are ones that we're basically just holding the line until we can come up with another type of funding mechanism that will not impact the citizens any worse than we are already. You can see the costs of police and fire have gone up. Those are a lot of catch-up things that we had to get done, you know, within the department. And it's simply the new requirements they're having to comply with. And that's changing daily. I mean, all of the rules that are being taken away from law enforcement. It's going to get more expensive to try to comply, you know, with those things. Fire, you'll see from about 2019 to 2023, 22 and 23 include the rate we're paying to Aberdeen. 19 and 20 through 23 include the new truck payment. So that's why you'll see a little bit of increase there versus the prior years. So you can see the city has tried to be as fiscally responsible as possible. You know, we've got some more tough decisions to make. We know Cosmo's probably not going to open or even start bringing employees back down until July 1. So we're going to have a first half of this year is going to be tough, but we know how to get through it, and we will. Next slide. Here's a graph of 3 of the departments of Park, Cemetery, and Street. So you can kind of see how those have trended in the last 18 years. Parks and Cemetery have been kind of up and down, and the down curves. 9, 10, and 11, 12, that was when the mill was down. 2020 during COVID. Street, was starting to do pretty good around 2014. 2019, I believe that was some grant funding in there that caused that spike.
For streets, yes.
Yes.
There was, the Relight Washington program,
So
part of
that,
that, and I believe in 14, and wasn't that the downtown border project too?
yes, 2014 and 15 was the final phase of the downtown Corridor
Mhm.
project.
And you'll see in parks in 2022, the spike there, and that's thanks to Linda Springer and the grants that she received for, Highland Park. So thank you, Linda, for that. So that's the main thing. Any spikes we have, it's due to grant funding and things like that. We haven't been able to really do much more. So here's police, fire, and city hall. Again, you can see like in 09, 10, and 11 where things went down and then started to come back up. And again, like Darren said, for police, there's a lot of training. We've had different times where we've had an officer in the academy, which cost us a lot of money because all our other officers are paying for overtime, things like that. Wage increases.
In several of those years, we were down to 3 officers.
Yeah.
4 for 3 years, 4 years.
The big spikes are primarily associated without studying it. In advance, I can guarantee that's gonna be overrun
Yeah.
as opposed to the expensive standard rate of pay.
This next slide is, like it says, inflation rates from 2005 to 2023. Obviously, these last couple of years, inflation has been horrendous. So our costs are going up a lot, but our revenues are just barely going up. So revenues are not keeping up with the costs that are associated with running the city. So here's a chart showing our revenues from 2005 to 2022. So you can see the dip when the mill was shut down and it starts to come back. And then COVID hits and we go right back down a little bit again. You'll notice in 2017, you see the big spike. From 2016 to 2018, that was the Mill Creek Dam project. So that was all grant funding to build the new dam up at Mill Creek. And then in 2021 and 2022, we received a total of $464,000 in ARPA funding, the American Rescue Plan Act, to help with the lost revenues from the COVID pandemic. I know you can't see it, I wish you could, but off to the side, you'll see the little chart and it shows our actual revenues for those years, so you could compare it. I wish I could turn it, but I can't. Oops, I'm not.
Oh, you wanna go back?
Oops, that's the wrong way. Dang it. Here, actually. Okay. So look at 2009 and 2010, for example, the general fund was in the $700,000 range. That's nothing to run a city even then. But it gives you a good idea of how the revenues just aren't keeping up with the expenses. So I wanted to touch a little bit on general fund taxes. This is where the majority of the money come from to support the city. Surprisingly, the biggest one is utility taxes. And that's mostly from electricity. That's 29% of our general fund taxes. B&O is only 20%. The other big one is property taxes. And then we have sales tax, which is only 13%, and the public safety tax, which is 4%. And the EMS utility surcharge, which is also known as the ambulance availability fee, is 9%. So this just gives you a good idea of how that's broken out. Darren, you want to touch on?
Yes, and so as you can see, staffing wise, we're actually running less people overall than what we did in 2005. And when I look at the departments, that's all personnel in the department, meaning like the police clerk, not just officers on the street, city hall, that's counting myself in here now. And then what Public Works has, so police in 2005 had 6. They were down to at one point 3.5. Should have put that in there, and that was in 2020. We are now, as of today, or actually, I guess this is today, back to 2 weeks, 2 weeks ago, full staff. City Hall was down to actually 2.5 at, I think, 2013 or 14.
And we were again in 17.
Yes, when we, actually 20 wasn't during the,
Well, in and during COVID as well. So we've had our few dips here in City Hall.
so Public Works, as you can see, you know, at last a lot why certain things aren't getting done. Well, there's still down 3.5 people. And that's unfortunately not gonna change anytime soon. So, we're putting more work on all staff and all departments that are wearing more hats. Doing things above and beyond what they normally have to do. But thankfully, you know, having a great experienced staff that's been here a long time and been able to do, so we're very fortunate in that aspect. You know, we've got some tough few months ahead of us, but we'll get through it. We've done it. This is our 3rd time going about this, and we know what to do, so we'll get there.
Council, have any questions?
I don't.
I just have more what the question is on.
Alrighty.
Can only make a comment, Darren.
Yeah, go ahead.
So thank you. That is really helpful. Will that information be provided, be available here at City Hall? For people
Yes.
to view? Right.
I can email it as well.
Thank you.
So I know it's on the staffing levels for 2005, 2023. We had all the city departments except for the fire department. So they were staff.
They were volunteers, not full-time paid staff. That's what we were focusing on. Because labor is always the biggest cost in any organization.
So that reflected full-time paid. Only to show any volunteers, city part-time workers.
Correct.
Thank you. And again, if somebody wants to get a copy of that or take a look at it, just contact City Hall and we'll have that.
I have one more question.
Oh,
Second slide. On the second slide at the beginning. We talked about the percentages, you have the pie chart and the percentages, is that average?
I have it.
Is that the average or is that
That's based off the 2023 budget.
2022?
Thank you.
Just think they don't.
thank you. All right, moving on to the next portion of the agenda, public comment on agenda items. If anyone in the audience has wants to speak on anything on the agenda, now is the time. Again, we just ask that you introduce yourself and try to limit yourself to 3 minutes.
I have my. Do you want to go? So I would like to speak to.
Okay, can you, we all know who you are, but can you?
Do I need my address? I just feel at home here. So I'd like to speak to the mental health navigator that is old business that was brought to the council attention last meeting is not on the agenda for tonight. So I'd like to speak to supporting that. A lot of you know me, but you don't know my history. I have a degree in psychology and human services. I work for the Department of Social Services in every aspect. I understand the need for mental health. More than you, probably most of you can even realize. 1 in 8 the World Health Organization says 1 in 8 citizens experience mental health. In Grays Harbor, that is probably much higher. We don't live in a vacuum here in Cosmopolis. You might think you know a few people that are experiencing family mental health issues. Mental health is organic. It comes from like bipolar, schizophrenia, depression, anxiety, drug issues. It is not going to go away. It's just going to get worse. Aberdeen has their hands, they are overwhelmed with mental issues and dealing with those problems. We cannot lose a service like the mental health navigator for our citizens, and most of all, for our police and fire department. They walk into difficult situations, and the homeless camp, we are going to see more and more of that filter into our community, where they're going to be addressing it. People who have personally dealt with mental health in their home and have had this service. Let me tell you, when I had to take a mental health person up to the hospital who was suicidal, threatening to kill someone, accompanied by police, I had to sit with them because there were no beds. This was several years ago. It is much worse now. So I am urging this council and the mayor to support this, whatever it takes. You need to support.
Thank you. Go ahead, Gary.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, I sent an email to all of you, and I only got 2 responses, one from Miles and Darren, so I want to put this email letter for the record.
Yes.
And I'm kind of disappointed I didn't get at least an acknowledgement from everybody, so I don't know if you read it or not.
I did, apologies.
Okay, but it supports the mental health navigator.
Thank you.
Steve Davis, Cosmopolis. The, on your budget presentation, and thank you for that. That really helps open everybody's eyes to where it could be. One of the things is you show the budgets from 2005 to 2023, but you didn't show the actuals. And that would be an interesting sideline if you could pop that back in there at some point to compare that information through departments, things like that, because a lot of times the department will budget something, but then not use that amount. And so it's kind of a budgeted items are one thing, but actuals, how much did you actually use in that department? That's pretty fair. The other thing I'd like to agree with Linda Springer and Kathy Spence on the mental health coordinator. In EMS services and police services, mental health is driving up the call volume. It's untold. It's amazing how much, and it's getting more and more difficult. We see more and more people in town, you know, it's tying up so much time. So this navigator, in my understanding of talking to law enforcement and with fire departments, is they're making a huge dent in the community, helping. And so the navigator is something we need to fund. It's critical for our department to have that availability to them. Back in the day, Chief Les Kennedy said, Highway 101 runs all the way from the Mexican border of Mexico, all the way basically to the Canadian border. Obviously, it stops at Port Angeles, but so that's a lot of volume. You never know who you're going to get on that road. And that was back in the maybe 70s when Les Kennedy was there. And then think of the volume and everything that comes up now. And people are leaving other places, coming here because it's easy. It's easy to live here. So mental health coordinator, it should be in the budget every year.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on agenda items? Hearing none, moving on to consent agenda, claims vouchers and meeting minutes. What's the council's pleasure?
Make a motion, we approve the agenda.
Second that.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So pass. Committee reports, Finance Subcommittee.
Yeah, we had a meeting this evening for council, essentially going over our presentation tonight. So I think that gave us a great snapshot as to what we're kind of staring down at as a city and as an administration. So I think we just need to prepare for the rest of the year with the mill being closed. It's a big impact.
Thank you. Public Works. Mhm.
There was no meeting,
Okay.
no report.
Public Safety
No, there was no meeting this month.
and Parks Rec. Did you meet at all? Okay, no meeting, no report. Moving on to city official reports, City Administrator Reigns.
Thank you, Mayor. For anybody listening online, there's a copy of my written report. It's under section 9, item A. So you're welcome to read that there. A few highlights from that. We've been having a problem here over the last year of people dumping brush and other items at McRae Park in the old compost storage area. We've posted that with no dumping signs. People are still continuing to dump up there. We've put a fence up. People are still dumping around that, so we're asking people's cooperation to not do that. It's getting to be rather expensive. It's gonna be very expensive to haul that material away, and that's gonna come out of the compost budget, which will probably eat up the budget for this year, and we may end up having to lose that, unfortunately. So let's hope that doesn't happen. One announcement, the Shorelines Master Program Periodic Review. There's a little bit about that in my written report as well. But on April 10th at 6:30, we're going to have a public hearing here to discuss that with the Department of Ecology and our consultants from AHBL. Cities of Aberdeen and Holcomb are doing the same thing, but it's going to talk about what the new requirements are along the shorelines from Department of Ecology and what we have to do to comply. Our plan was developed back in 2017 for the 3 cities. We all worked together and everything was fairly new, but in 5 short years, on 6 now, they came up with all sorts of new great ideas that we have to comply with. So so we're just checking that off. This is going through the process. It's all funded by grant, so that's a wonderful thing. And then lastly, since council members Carlisle wasn't here, he was going to ask for time for Linda to speak on Mill Creek, or not Mill Creek Park, but Lions Park for a project that we're working on, where we want to request for grant funding, but we need permission to do so. So I'll turn that over to Linda now to let her step back.
As you know, we were very successful in completing almost a $400,000 project at that final. It is used by a lot of people. We started with the Lions Club part as a right there as we come into town. On the corridor where people are traveling, got room where people can stop. We got permission for the first round of grant. We got $25,000. I wrote a grant to the community foundation. We got $25,000 for them. That will cover the covered area. That will cover the cement base. That will also cover the new swing set that will be going in there because the other one is so dilapidated. That swing set will have 4 bench swings, an ADA swing, and a bucket imprint swing to meet the needs of all individuals and children in our community. At the next go around, I met with Donna and Darren and Jeff and myself met Thursday in the rain to really look at the climbing toy that was there. You drive by it, looks pretty good. Let me tell you, it's rusting, the steps on it, the plastic is coming off. If a child falls on there, they could seriously cut or hurt themselves. The cost of trying to fix that versus the cost of me writing a grant because you get me for free. So maybe a coffee once in a while would be appreciated, but it's better. let's not put a Band-Aid on it, let's fix it. So that's what I'm doing. I met with the Lions Club, they approved a new climbing toy that up to 30 children can play on. It's educational, exploratory type of play. And so that, I'm asking permission to write that grant and move forward with that.
I would like to first say thank you for all your work on that, and I apologize for not being at that meeting, but I would get information and I was donating blood that night. And so I missed the rain.
I do,
But-
well, the Parks Department and down, they were amazing to work with last year. Couldn't accomplish what we did up there, even with all the grant funding that I got. I mean, Darren was right there to run things by, Jeff was right there. And, Jeff said because of the budget, because of where we're at, getting the water meters in and all of that, he doesn't have the time. I get it. That's another reason why we picked Lion Park. It's pretty easy. Get the old equipment out, all the new equipment the grant funding will cover the installation of it. So I'm just asking permission to move forward.
And I'll make the motion to approve Linda's applying for a grant to fund the replacement of playground equipment for the Lions Park with the city support.
Okay, that will be a basketball hoop.
1 second.
I'll second.
So there's a motion and a second on the table to approve Linda moving forward with the grant funding.
Yeah.
So it's discussion, we'll let you jump
Okay,
back.
so I don't have to come back up for these little things. So the big climbing toy, the new basketball hoop, in-ground picnic table, ADA table, for the covered area, 8 foot, 6 foot, and new plastic borders that are safe and ground cover. So I'm gonna be writing grants for that.
So we would need to amend that because I think it's a playground equipment, did it not?
It does say playground equipment.
So equipment at Lions Park?
Completion.
Yeah.
or,
Steve?
It will be the correct verbiage.
You could just say infrastructure.
Yeah,
Playground equipment.
So
infrastructure.
there's a motion to amend the motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to amend my motion to include the playground equipment and infrastructure for the Lions Park.
Right.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded to amend the original motion. Any discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all in favor? And now on the motion to approve Linda moving forward with applying for those grants, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So passed. Go get them, Linda. Thank you. Anything?
That's it. I'll take the rest, take care of the rest under new business.
Okay,
Thank you.
Finance Director, you go.
I just want to remind everybody to come by City Hall and pick up your vouchers for spring cleanup. We have them all ready to go. Spring cleanup is April 17th through the 22nd. So I got tonight.
Moving on to Police Chief, Pete Blayman.
Good evening. Thanks for the interruption at the start of things tonight. Hiring's completed. Look forward to hopefully start reducing some of the hours of lack of coverage and extra expenditures to have those coverages. I appreciate your support. Regarding the Navigator, I'm going to defer my report on that to old business item A when we get to it. Calls for service since last council meeting, we saw an increase from 119 up to 172 for the last basically 30 days. And like all the areas around us, we have been also experienced a pretty significant increase in fentanyl overdoses that we're combating. I just want to publicly acknowledge that, thank you to the partners that have helped us to have Narcan, which has saved in the last week and a half 2 lives in our community from people that were basically clinically dead that my officers were able to administer, and by the time till Cosby Fire and Aberdeen Fire arrived on scene to help with CPR and save lives. So quick action by our guys of making the right assessment and the right equipment to get the job done. So again, just publicly to my guys and for the partners that helped us with having the Narcan. That's it.
Thank you, Chief. Chief Valley.
We have a new EMT, so Phil Sims, we onboarded him back in October. He just finished all the state requirements for EMT. He did come to us with his national EMT. I was just getting certified in the county and state. So we're very excited about that. Want to provide a brief update with the RFA process. We held the first public forum last night in Oakland. Mayor Pauly came to that. It went pretty well. We have another one scheduled next Monday in the city of Aberdeen at 6 o'clock at the fire station. And then the following Tuesday, the 28th, will be Cosmopolis here at the fire station, 6 o'clock that Tuesday evening. And we're encouraging, you don't have to go to just the Cosmopolis one if you want to attend one in Aberdeen next week. There's no borders when it comes to these meetings, so just an opportunity for the public to come out, learn more about the RFA and what that's looking like. I've started conversations with Chief Golding and Chief Miller of what response plan throughout the rest of the year should start looking like from the departments. As we're getting more bodies on here in Cosmopolis, we want to start adjusting the level of response that we're getting from the city of Aberdeen to hopefully reduce that overall within the budget, and then also to be able to provide service back in the city of Aberdeen to be a mutual aid partner when it comes to that. We're continuing with member recruitment, trying to get as many bodies on as possible. With that, we've onboarded Sandy Lair in the past week. He is going to start helping with some administrative office work for the fire department. So we're really excited to have her in there. And pending any questions, that's under my report.
Perfect. And our public works superintendent is not here tonight.
And as far as his report, it's in my written report. I added a few things and I'll touch on some of it.
Yeah.
Under item C, number 12.
Perfect. Thank you. Mayor's report is much smaller than it was at the beginning of the meeting because Chief Fowley and Darren kind of hit on my thing. So just one thing I want to remind people, coming up is filing week in May, and it's a couple months away, but there's 8 different positions for Cosmopolis residents if they're looking to get onto the ballot in November. That includes my seat, 3 council positions, port commissioner, 3 seats on the Cosy School Board. So anyone that's considering or is serious about running for any of those positions, I just would encourage you to reach out to the county or preferably anybody who has sat in that role, whatever it is you're looking at, for a full term, so that you can learn about the requirements, responsibilities, and time commitments. And as we approach that filing week coming up May 16th through the 20th, I know there's a number of people in town who have at least inquired about it. So I would hate for someone to come into the role or file for it unprepared for what the job actually requires. So, but encourage anybody who has interest to definitely file. So that is all that I've got. So we will move on to old business and our mental health navigator. You have something specific or, yeah. To you, Chief.
I appreciate that it's still on the agenda. It's still very important, still, obviously, I'm very appreciative of the community support that already came up this evening. In preparation for some of the questions I anticipated, I've asked Lieutenant Jeff Solstrom from the Oakland Police Department to be able to answer some of the questions and talk about some of the progress that we have made. And obviously, Lena is here, so I'm very happy she's here. Maybe she could even fill in some of those blanks. So the actual navigator is within the room for it. So, yeah.
They may have any specific questions or?
Can you, I mean, for those that might be listening or in the audience that are kind of unaware, kind of a brief overview of what the role.
So the Mental Health Navigator Program came about. Chief Myers and Chief Shoemate applied for a grant through the Washington Association of Sheriff and Police Chiefs well over a year ago, and we received a grant. So what the Mental Health Navigator is somebody who is, she worked, Lena is here, and she works out of our police station, but the grant was for the cities of Aberdeen, Oakland, and Cosmopolis. And she's a co-responder with law enforcement to deal with people with mental health issues. So what happens is we have somebody that we deal with, that especially the people that we deal with frequently, we contact Lena, and her job is to not necessarily provide any treatment or services herself. She's not technically, well, she is a counselor, but her job in this is not as a counselor. And she does a lot of that type of stuff just from her life experience, and she's outstanding at it. But her job is to find the people, the resources that they need to be successful in their treatment journey. And so with anecdotally, I can give you a couple examples of, we had a lady has actually lived in, I know Aberdeen, Hocum, I'm not sure if she ever lived in Covey. But she would literally call us 100, 150 times a month, sometimes, 10, 12 times a day. And she, for police and fire, she did have some legitimate medical needs along with her mental health stuff, so we couldn't ignore her calls. It wasn't like somebody just calling and, hey, we know they're fine, we don't need to go see them. She has somebody with some legitimate needs. So an ambulance, a fire truck, a police car would go every time she called, just eating up resources. And she lived in our both Aberdeen and Hocum for many, many years. I've been dealing with her. I've worked for Hocum for over 20 years now, and I started dealing with her pretty much on day one. It wasn't until Elena got here, and I had tried reaching out to every resource that I could think of, from adult protective services, all the local community health resources, and we just could not get traction with helping with her. As soon as Elena got hired, she kind of became our first project. And Elena was able to get her navigated to various resources and has reduced our call volume significantly since then. And now I understand, I spoke to somebody today that's familiar with her. She's in a facility up in Olympia, getting the care she needs. It's for somebody in our communities, we were Grace Harbor and most rural community states are a veritable desert of mental health resources. And we don't have the people and the services that we need. And so to have somebody like Lena that can reach out beyond the borders of the county, and with all her contacts from her own life experience and her career, she's able to reach out further than we have the ability to and find those resources. And so for the lady I'm talking about, when we have somebody with not only mental health issues, but they also have medical needs, there's very, very few places in the state that can handle both those things. And so we would take her, unfortunately, she spent weeks and weeks in the ER because there was no, and that's not the appropriate place for her. Jail wasn't the appropriate place for her because medical needs were so severe, we couldn't take care of her. The hospital, she was just taking up a bed in the emergency room, and we all know that our hospital is very short staffed and just taking up resources that I think a hospital, an emergency room, that's about $30,000 a day. And she's taking up those resources from legit, I won't say legitimate sick people, but from sick people who need the emergency resources right then. And so Lena was able to get her, she's been in several different treatment places, but Lena has continued to work to make sure that she, it's not that we don't want her back in our community, but we want her back in our community healthy, where she can function on her own or with her family. And so Lena has continued to monitor her progress and make sure she's getting places needed. She's done that with several people in our community. I know there's a few people here in the audience who she's helped here in the city of Cosmopolis. But I know the big concern is the funding, and I can speak to that just a little bit. This is a grant funded position, and our grant runs through the end of June. We had a meeting today with the health department. I've met with county commissioners. I'm very optimistic, extremely optimistic that this funding will continue. In defense of the Cosby Council and Chief Lehman, we have not come to the city of Cosby or any of our councils to ask for money at this point to support this program. So I've heard some rumors that people are concerned that Cosby said no, Waffle said no to funding. We have not asked them. So they're not aware of anything that's going on, and we haven't reached out to them yet. That may become, as this program continues, it may come a point where it's going to be hopefully funded by the cities, but we're going to continue to try to seek outside funding to keep these programs going. And like I said, I'm very optimistic they're going to be able to do that. I met again with the health department today with Wilma from the health department. I've met with Commissioner Raines. They're very supportive of these programs, and we want to keep them going. In fact, we'd actually like to expand them. If I had my wishes and could make it happen right now, I would put Lena in charge, and then I would expand the half a dozen folks with her skill set in our community. So anybody have any questions? I hope that kind of, takes care of some of your fears. Anybody have any questions for me?
What is it that the city council needs to approve or
Nothing
recommend?
at this point. Yeah, we haven't, nobody's come to any of the councils yet to ask for any funding. We are concerned because this is a grant funded position, the grants eventually run out. And so if we're unable to secure additional funding, we feel that the program is so important that the city should fund it. Or the county and the cities combined, depending on how that looks. We feel like it probably should be a program that is continued because it is so beneficial to our communities. But at this point, we are still diligently seeking outside funding sources to keep the program going. I saw your budget proposal and I want to say that it looks like Todd has done a great job of running a very, even in the lean years, a very flat budget. And Oakland has been the same way. Like you mentioned, we don't have the retail base that Aberdeen does. So our Oakland and Cosmopolis have to kind of work what we have, and we run very lean and we don't ask for a lot of extra stuff. And I don't think this is extra stuff. It's a very important program. It has done wonders. And I just gave you one example, but there's dozens of examples of people that Lena has been able to help. Helping keeping people within their homes. We've dealt with some issues where people they're in government funded housing, but because of their behavior, they're gonna get kicked out. And now, so they go from having a roof over their head to being homeless. And Lena has kept several people from becoming homeless just by her efforts. So it is, it's an extremely important position. We plan to do whatever we can to keep it going. But again, at this time, we're not reaching out to any of the city councils asking for funding at this point.
We had Chief Blayman kind of brought up to our attention of the impending kind of grant and kind of brought some budget forward. And so that's why we wanted to keep it on the agenda. So it is top of mind. I know that, like I said, that I've known a lot of the people that you've been able to assist and the people you've worked with. And I cannot think of a single person any side, anywhere who has said even any sort of negative about the program or your needs. So, I think that we all are in support. I actually spoke with a commissioner today about funding and kind of getting an update on that. So it is definitely top of mind and we are watching it and all in support and do whatever we can to continue your role. And again, just if we can expand it in any way possible, that I think that is a goal. I can't speak for everyone, of course, but I feel like that is a goal for just about every city.
Appreciate that.
Okay, I'd ask to speak tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, actually, I decided I would invite Lena to speak because she can do a lot better job than I can. I get too emotional when it comes to the subject. So, just for myself, knowing the amount of people that have called me, because they know I've dealt with it for 31 years. I can't tell you how many people have called me, and I said, can I give them your number? And they've done it, and it keeps continuing. And I can't say enough about her position and what she does. So I'm gonna let her talk. It's gonna make me cry. Well, I'm Lena. I am the behavior navigator, and thank you for all the praise. This is a subject very near and dear to my heart. I have a mother who lives with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. I have special needs children, a Down syndrome son who has early onset dementia. See, Kathy, you did it to me. I had a stroke a few years back and it made all my emotions that I bottled up for years come to the surface. So forgive me. And I have a son who actually tried to commit suicide this last summer and had some justice involvement because of behavior in the emergency department at Summit. And so I walk the walk of the people I serve. So it's very personal to me when I see someone in addiction or suffering with a mental health crisis, because we can help them. I come from trauma. I was a street child in Seattle for 3 years. And I didn't have a high school diploma until I was 38, and I'm now starting my PhD in mental health policy, the legislation. And there is recovery pathways. You can come from addiction, you can come from severe trauma. And a lot of the people we see out there in our homeless encampments come from severe trauma, and they self-medicate in order to address that trauma. And the unmet mental health needs are astronomical in our in our community. And then you couple that with our housing shortages and all tiers of housing from, housing authority to step up housing and housing to keep our own kids in the community once they graduate and go to the community college. There's no starter homes available. So there's a lot of real challenges facing our community in Grace Harbor County. I lived in Elma for years, just recently bought our house in Hopeland. We did look in Cosby too and Aberdeen, but housing's hard. I mean, it's very competitive when you can even afford a house. So there are a lot of challenges facing our community, and for this vulnerable community especially, having the behavior navigator role, which is overseen by law enforcement, I think is really important, because what it has allowed me to do is have that 30,000-foot view at all the system partners working with these families and going to various organizations for their care and their treatment journey. And I'm able to hold these organizations accountable when someone drops the ball. When someone from a FACT team or someone from a WISE team doesn't follow up with their client, I'm on the phone going, hey, I've got this person in crisis again. Where's their peer? Where's their FACT team? Oh, well, there's this shifting employee thing going on in their organization. So we're able to identify some shortfalls within organizations and create some Band-Aids, if you will, pulling from our DHR peer organization and pulling in some temporary wraparound support there so that we can get the strain off law enforcement, get the strain off dispatch, and we're able to step in and do some outreach so that it alleviates that. Is that your watch
Yeah.
talking to? I am. Have to tackle that one yet. But so it's different than being a mental health counselor with an organization. You're kind of siloed. And this role, you're not siloed anywhere. You're working with every single agency that works and follows individuals. And I think it's been key in being able to get people the help they need, whether it's within the community or going wherever we need to outside of the community.
Thank you.
Thank you. I love it. I loved it. Dream job I never thought I would do. When you're in school, you don't think of working with law enforcement when you're doing a psychology degree. So it's been amazing.
Mayor, if I may briefly,
Absolutely.
I originally came to the council and public safety committee because at the point when I came, we thought that the police department, the only option we would have would be to fill the gap between basically July and the end of the year for keeping her employed. So when I came to you with those numbers, that was the percentage that we were being presented. Since then, and since I've met with you, that's when some things changed with open opportunities that we're pursuing actively. That's why I was at the meeting today with Oakland and the health department trying to fill those other avenues. So if there's confusion amongst council, I'm sorry, but that's kind of where we were at.
And again, I just want to state that, I mean, it is something, until we know for certain that funding is there, it is still top of mind. Like I said, I was having discussions just today about that, just to ensure. So it is.
So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah.
And if things don't work out, I would hope that the council would start talking for the 2024 budget to find a way to do our part. Hopefully by then things will take a nice healthy turn in the right direction with our finances, that we can actually have that conversation. And I understand that conversation was kind of out of order because of our budget cycle, and it was something very unexpected for all of us, a mistake that was made in when the cycle of the grant was versus the cycle of everybody's budgets did not line up very well, and it kind of left us scrambling. So I thank the council for their interest and attention.
Thank you.
So Jeff, Waspik right now is doing the grant, right?
Correct.
And are they not offering that in the future? That was just for the initial?
After the initial, right, so that the grant will end in at the end of June.
Okay, so, yeah, I just wanted to make sure we weren't missing an opportunity with
And
them.
unfortunately, with the transition to the police departments, this was started by Chief Myers and Chief Schumate, and then Chief Strong and I, and no, he and Chief Green kind of get thrown into this in the middle of it, trying to figure it out and learn, you know, what these contracts mean and how to fill them. And it's been a challenge. It's still
Right.
learning.
Right. Is there, besides our two local grant opportunities potentially, do we know of any other entities that maybe we can, yeah, Linda, maybe? It just,
That was going to be my question, and I would be happy to help. And, just kind of give me a framework and
Okay.
I.
That's part of the reason I'm gonna call you.
Yeah, and I have my computer usually from April, he
Okay.
walks in the door.
I think this one that we discussed today is looking, I don't wanna say
right,
out of turn, but
No, I think I'm pretty positive about it. It's, I just got it today and I read through the RFP and now I have to sit down and tackle it tomorrow. And probably most of next week, to get through it and start filling it out. I think we have a very good opportunity with this one. Again, it's a 1-year grant, but it gives us another year and then we start looking to open on it. Website. You guys are, but first 24, we could start either looking to continue grant or maybe funding it. And my talk with Commissioner Rains, she's extremely supportive. I believe Commissioner
Pine is involved.
is as well. And so I think working with the county, working with the health department, we will continue it one way or another. Yeah, it's just how the funding is gonna look is it's gonna change. I've learned a lot of new social service terms in the past few weeks. And I've learned about grading funding and all kinds of interesting things that you know, I never expected to do in my law enforcement career, but
Welcome to admin.
yeah, I don't feel like much of a cop most days anymore. So, So we actually had a meeting and now Deputy Chief Snodgrass at Aberdeen was late for the meeting. We were meeting with the health department on another thing. And I called him up and I said, where you at? You got a meeting today? And yeah, he goes, well, I'm working on this big deal homicide. I said, yeah, you're not a cop anymore. Unfortunately, the realities of when you promote, right, Eden?
so I think, yeah, it's important that we keep this on our agenda.
Yeah.
Not only for next month, but I think this is something we gotta keep in our minds. Because the budget cycles don't line up with ours, they're going by the state biennium budget cycle, and we're on a yearly end of the year fiscal. So I think that's just something that's gonna have long range planning. So,
If anybody has any questions afterwards, I'll stick around or I can give you. I think I have a few business cards or he has my contact information. Feel free to get a hold of me anytime if you have questions. And I will do my best to answer them. If I can't answer them, I'll find somebody who can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to new business this evening. Item A, HDR amendment. Darren?
Yes, this is a request for an amendment to the contract with HDR for the Mill Creek Multi Objective Plan. Excuse me, got a scratchy throat. And this is for additional survey work that I had talked to you a little bit about at the last meeting. And this is for an addition of $10,878. This is all 100% covered by grant funding. So this, we received an additional $25,000 from the flood authority to cover this and a little bit of extra work for HDR. So this will be nothing out of the city coffers, but we do need to have an approval from the council for us to go ahead and enter in this new agreement.
Council's pleasure.
so what's the wording on that? You want to enter an agreement with MLIP, or what's the?
No, we have an agreement with HDR. This is actually amending the original agreement to add an additional fee of $10,878 for not to exceed amount of $152,887, all of which is covered by grant funding.
I'll make a motion that we approve the amendment to the agreement between the owner and HDR Engineering Inc. for their engineering services. If they didn't know, amendment.
Moved and seconded to approve the amendment with HDR regarding the Mill Creek Multi-Objective Improvements Plan. Discussion from the council.
Pretty cut and dry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So passed. Item B, RV dwelling permit is in front of the council this evening. Temporary RV dwelling permit. Darren? do you wanna touch on this?
Yes, building official code enforcement officer Bill Cedar has looked at this. And he has recommended that we approve this at this time with no concerns.
What is the council's pleasure on this temporary RV dwelling application?
Make a motion to approve the RV dwelling permit for 1200 Second Street.
Second that.
It has moved and seconded to approve the RV dwelling permits. Any discussion?
I would just like to say that I went by and looked at the properties and made sure that it looked great to me, and I read the letter and don't see any problems with it whatsoever.
As did I. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor? Any opposed? So passed. And item C, quote for water meters. Darren, once again.
This one here, I'll touch a little bit on Jeff's report. As you know, you've seen the guys going around town replacing water meters since first part of January. We have roughly 760, 70 connections within the city.
Around 750.
750 now. So the guys have put in roughly 450 to 480 new meters since the first of the year. These were actually bought back in 2000 or 2020 rather.
Yeah.
They're not, but they're really good. So, 2020, but because of COVID and a lack of funding, excuse me, and all the other things that have gone on, the guys being shorthanded have had to do other things. It's had other more important things come up. So these new water meters are radio read that we read here from City Hall. So if anybody, some of you have the new meters, if you have a leak in your home, it'll alert the billing clerk that your bill is starting to exceed your normal usage. And then therefore we can contact you. We can do a real-time reading and a history and say, hey, you have a leak that you may want to look into that.
And we turn the water off ourselves without having to call you guys, like because of the old.
No, because some of the shutoffs we use are so stiff, even our guys are breaking some. What we do advise when we're doing that is to have a shut off on your side. And actually the plumbing code requires that, but the plumbing code was developed many years after your original connection was done. So that's why we don't go say, hey, we put a shut off in, but we will help you do that if you ever want to. Let us know, so we'll be happy to do that. So anyway, the meters we ordered, we thought we had enough at the time, but we had enough new housing go in since 2020, not 2000, that we've used some of those additional meters we had on the shelf. We had some other older meters go bad in other areas within the city that we've used those meters. So in essence, we ended up about 45 meters short. We want to buy 50 meters at a cost of $19,965.18. When a new connection comes in, the person who is getting the new connection pays for that meter. Not all of you, because your meters and connections have been there for years, so we're just swapping those out. The other important thing about these read down to the accuracy of 1/10 of 1 gallon. The other ones read within an accuracy of 1 cubic foot, which is roughly 7.5 gallons. So we've had several people per week come through the drive up here at City Hall and say, "Oh, has our rates gone up?" Well, yeah, they did back in January, but it's because the meters are reading so much more accurately than what they used to read. The old positive displacement meters have a turning disc inside. They wear out. They start to not read as accurately, and therefore you get a lower reading. It's good for you, bad for us, because we gotta pay Aberdeen for the water. So,
They raised the price too, didn't they?
yes, they did in 10% back in January. So this here will help keep us keep our rates in check. Because if we can keep more accurate with our these meters, then it doesn't cause us to have to make up for the difference of the unaccounted for water from what we bill versus what we buy.
Thank you, and I'd like to speak to that. We were out of town in Seattle and I got a phone call from George and "We've got a leak." And so we were able to get one in the house that it taken care of, so we were very appreciative that we got a new meter and someone fixed that.
As far as this, just because I know the question's coming, as far as funding for this.
So some of it would probably come out of the water fund because that's obviously what it is. And we have equipment reserve that we can use for that. So it would not come out of the general fund in any way, shape or form.
Is it depleting either of those other funds?
No.
Council, have any pleasure? Does the council, any motions? Yeah, we would need council approval to, for the funding. So I was gonna say, it's like. But, yeah, so what's the council's pleasure on the proposal to spend 19,960? I want to say, I was gonna say, it was like 3 or 5. But
I make a motion that we fund that, Aaron, his money.
I'll second that.
has been moved and seconded to approve the funding for these additional 50 meters from correct equipment. Discussion.
Just want to say thank you for detailing where the funds would be coming from if we do approve. It's obviously well within what's budgeted for those different funds. And I think that's important moving forward, that we're having discussions where, you know, when we're doing new spending, exactly where that's coming from and what it's being funded by, so.
And I mean, like you said, that having these more accurate meters in is better for our budget spending and everything as well.
And if this was coming out of the general fund at all, we would be saying let's wait.
Absolutely.
Further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, let's get this project done. It is now time for council comments.
I went to take Jeff and Steve Fleeman for talking today about the Navigator proposition. I was really confused after the last meeting, and what you both have said tonight has clarified a lot for me in the understanding of what we can do in the future. And we, along with Linda, were part of the citizens that, thank goodness, with the new meters, the leak was caught that quick. So anything you need.
Don't do that. Over there, turn it.
No. Okay, that's it.
That's from Robinson.
Oh, well, I'd like to say welcome to our new police officer and police secretary. For sure. And as for the Navigator project, thank you for the clarification. As a retired social worker with many years of counseling and work with that type of deal, I'm very much want to support that. Other than that, thank you everybody for being here tonight. And thanks for all the information. This is a good one.
Awesome. Just want to say, thank you to the officers on the fentanyl overdoses. Those situations are very dynamic when they're happening, trying to figure out exactly what's happening in real time. So kudos to them, if you could let them know from the council. And I want to thank everyone for presenting tonight about mental health navigator position. Talked to a few of you. either email or over the phone about it. And I think we all in the meeting last month didn't feel so hot about how it all went. We are in a very precarious situation as far as funding. And I think that's a serious situation that the city's in. So if there is hope and light at the end of the tunnel to keep that going, that's what we prefer, obviously, which goes without saying. And also want to say congratulations to your 2 new positions that you swore in tonight. We're excited to have them on board.
Public comments, this is open to anything. Again, we just ask that you introduce yourself and try to limit it to 3 minutes.
If the city has any enforcement as far as the violations of the ordinance, is anybody following through on it? There's been boats parked on the street for months and nobody has ever done anything. We don't have an.
Can you state your name for the record?
Pardon me?
Can you state your name for the record?
Elon.
Well, I haven't received any complaints regarding the
Yeah.
parking, but we actually have towed quite a few vehicles in the last few months. I personally have impounded about 10 vehicles. Okay, have you reported it? I think.
Yeah. Talking to City Hall about it down here at the least.
City Hall is not the police department. I'm sorry, I haven't received that message, but if you'll stick around, I'll happily take that information and we can work
I
on
definitely will.
that. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I'd like to thank Lena for coming tonight and speaking and Officer Salzberg and he for backing up this extremely important, extremely. And I want to thank you too for doing what he did before at our house before Lena ever came. He was a good counselor, let me tell you. But, I mean, we need 10 of her. Seriously.
Agreed.
Just one.
Can you introduce yourself? Can you state your name for the record? Thank you.
Over here with the problem with the grass and stuff, why don't you put a camera up, then you can catch the people who are doing it.
Well, we can. The area we're talking about is up at Mac Rankin Park.
Oh, it's not just over here.
No, that's the collection point. We're doing pretty good there. It's being self-policed by most of the citizens where none of us want it to go away.
No,
We're gonna have to find a new dump location anyway, because we're gonna open up that parking lot. So that's one issue to tackle. But the other thing is people, if they keep bringing in big brush and stumps and concrete, then we have to pay to haul that away. So we're wanting help. If you see somebody up there, say, what are you doing? Or let us know, or let Keith know. We want to try to protect that best we can.
it's a nice service.
Yeah, and we're proud of it. We think that keep it going.
Thank you.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Good evening. My name is Nathan and I live at 1200 Second Street. It was subject tonight for the RV permit. I just wanted to thank everybody for reviewing the letter and reviewing the information. Just a little bit more detail on it. My elderly disabled mother is currently living in that RV on my property. It has always been intended to be temporary until we could find her a suitable place to live. It's very difficult right now to do that, not only monetarily wise, but also her age. She's not quite 62 years old. And most places that will take an elderly disabled woman, they have a minimum of a 2-year waiting list. It's been very difficult for us to find a place, and so we've just been doing what we can, trying not to bother anybody around us, keeping to ourselves, just to have her there temporarily until we can find her a place. I am also the owner of the boat in question from the guest here in the back. I was not aware that the boat parked on the side of the road was in fact was going against any code until recently when Clay here presented me with the codes of the city. I am currently trying to work on an alternative place to store the boat as well. The problem therein is in the code, it states that if you have anything stored on your property, such as a boat that has a tarp on it, that is a project that I'm working on, or a jet ski that is on a trailer that has a tarp on it that is on my property that I'm working on, I now have to build a fence around my entire property and completely enclose it off to the streets and the public around me. I definitely noticed many other homes in the neighborhood that have such things going on, which is why it never crossed my mind that it could be in defiance of city code. So now that this is being brought to my attention, I am working diligently on trying to remedy the matter. So I just want to put that out there. One question for you, Darren, you mentioned something about older homes here and the water shut off valves being put on the customer side of the line. You mentioned something about help or assistance. Are you just referring to the actual turning off of the city water connection for that to be done? Or is there any vouchers or any discounts for plumbing work?
No, what we would do, we would go turn it off and then we would help you actually connect it back. We would do the connection back to the meter
Okay.
and the check valve. You would have to buy the, the shut off
And
valve.
get somebody. to
Just
put
let us
that
know,
in.
and the guys, if they have time, then they'll help you with, quite a bit of that, because to our benefit, it saves us money.
Yeah, that's for my benefit too, because I can't turn that thing off.
Yeah.
Tracks.
If it's something you think about this spring or summer, let us know and we'll.
Yeah, I was gonna do it last year, just never could get around to it, and we did have, a water leak under the house, did have the city come out and shut it off, so I could repair that. But it would be nice to shut it off on my end without having to bother you.
Sure.
All right, thank you. for
Sounds
the
good,
information. And thank you, everybody.
And I just want to thank, you said that, thank you for running through the proper channels when things are brought to your attention.
I did, as
It's
soon as
exact
Bill
way
Carter
to-
came out, which was a month ago, I came over here or I sent the letter in, and then the next hearing date was today, so it's quite a bit of time from when I actually addressed you guys about it to now. So, thank you for your time.
I'd like to share a letter tonight and we'll gather some information on it, so I'm just going to read it. Mayor Polly, this was from you in regard to the Project Hope. And the mayor wrote to a grant committee seeking funding for a project that I think citizens in our community are not aware of and should be aware of and should have a lot of input. So I'm going to read the letter. I have copies of it here. I'm writing to give support for myself in the city of Cosmopolis. So if you're the city of Cosmopolis and you are a part of this, I think citizens need to know. From the city of Cosmopolis for the housing opportunity through positive engagement, Hope Project within the city of Cosmopolis. The introduction and passage of in-growth second substitute House Bill 1220 in 2021 brought to light a need in communities throughout the state for transitional housing. This need has been further highlighted through the raise in home prices and lack of new building projects. And he goes on and talks about how it's a government obligation to help with these type of projects. So instead of taking up the time, I'm gonna copy these out so you can read them. So tell me, do any of you know what the Project Hope is? Any of you?
Nope.
The Project Hope is transitional housing for offenders who are really low-risk offenders released that are incarcerated into housing. So Kyle, did you get approval from the council? Or did you write this yourself? Which, I write lots of grants myself, but I have to come before the council to get permission to write a grant. Did you run this before the council or before the citizens of this community?
I did write it, and it is not signed from the city council. It is signed from myself and the city, in which I am the administrator.
And
So
so,
it is under my purview to be able to write letters of support for legal projects.
I think, Kyle, the problem that we've had numerous times in our community is, what is your purview? What do you do? Time and time again, I voted for. Time and time again, communication within this city, talking to the citizen, this affects everyone, not just you. You are an elected officer, and you said 3 times in this letter, the city of Cosmopolis, on behalf of the city of Cosmopolis, you, that you've been working with the city of Cosmopolis. This is you. Did any of you?
And
council-
the city,
Wait. Have the floor right now. Any of you know of this? Did any of you know that on First Street across from Papik, next to the retail places. Thank you. Not across from the RV park. And I have a parcel number that they're putting in transitional, he's supporting transitional housing himself and on behalf of the city of Cosmopolis for low-risk offenders. I've been researching it for a month. Our state prisons are overwhelmed. They're over resources. You heard tonight about what our police, our firemen are facing. Look at Aberdeen at our housing. So you get citizens in here, if they, these offenders in, and if they don't meet it, maybe they go back, maybe they end up. The opportunity, what I've been told, these are low risk offenders. So there's a system within the prison that these people, depending how long they're in, they graduate down to this low level. They're locked up. Are they using drugs while they're in prison? No. What are the chances that they're going to be? Recidivism is huge, and I can give you the numbers. So again, I want to say, Kyle, I am very disappointed that this has not been a town hall meeting. This has not been brought out to the council, that we are a city struggling for revenue, for business, and you support, and I want to tell you, I've been in service most of my life trying to help people. Trying, but we are short on services. You talk to.
So I'm
anyone.
gonna interrupt you, just because I just want to make it clear, this is not a business that is outside of zoning. This is a legal business that is specifically intended to assist in lower recidivism rates. As it sits right now, anybody coming out of prison, if they come in, unless they have any sort of legal obligations, can live next to you, can
You're
live
right.
anywhere in the town.
You're right.
This is a specific program meant to assist in lowering recidivism in transitional housing, and it is legally, based on the proposals, legally available to be cited there. There is no councilmatic action that is required. There is absolutely nothing that it needs council approval, and this is completely under my purview to write letters of support, just like a letter to support a Port of Grace Harbor project or another regional project. That this is not something that requires council action. This is not something that is a town hall worthy thing. This is a legally available, needed program that they've run through all the process and they own the land. And
They haven't ran through all of it. I was on the phone with Derek for an hour today. But I have.
well, they don't have it cited yet, but I'm like, they are running through the process.
To the question, working in social services, working with law enforcement, things that need to be in place, how it's going to be monitored.
Correct.
You don't think this is a town hall meeting for our citizens to say, what kind of business? How do we want Cosmopolis?
No, I don't believe so. I understand your concern, and I understand citizens' concern, but if someone is opening up a coffee shop, there is not a town hall meeting. Because, but I'm gonna cut you off, because I know, I understand your concerns, and I am more than willing to answer any questions, regarding Hope, regarding their process, as much information as possible leading into this, but in the end, this is a legally viable business or a nonprofit that is looking to put something in an area that, based on what they've said, is legally available in the zoning. Whether or not some people agree that there should be a place to assist people coming out of prisons instead of just throwing them out on the street or allowing them to live wherever and having this transitional program to lower recidivism, that is their opinion. I'm cutting you off, Linda. I'm sorry, Linda, you have covered your time. Linda, I'm cutting you off. I understand your concerns. I am more than willing to continue discussing with them, and you're more than willing to talk with the council as much as you want. I understand your concerns, but this is not a council action. This is not a town hall meeting. This is a legally viable process that is going through all the channels. Your concerns are heard. And if anybody watching in the audience would like an original copy of my letter of support for the funding for this program, I would be more than happy to give them, or I would be more than happy to talk more about it, but thank you. Additional public comments this evening? Hearing none, 8:33. To a close.